Councillor Kinney, we are ready to go.
Thank you, Dina. And good morning to your worship, Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors, and all staff that are present, and to all the residents of Wasaga Beach that are watching. I'd like to call this meeting of the Wasaga Beach Coordinated Committee for Thursday, March 11, 2021 to order. I'm not seeing any disclosure of pecuniary interest. However, if there's any during this time period, don't be hesitant to let the chair know. We'll move down to community service section and the deputation presentation petition to public meeting. We do have one, and at this time I'd like to turn the chair over to Councillor Foster to host this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to chair the public meeting, so allow me to read my script here. If my Zoom cuts out, someone signal me or something. But notice of a public meeting was mailed to the property owners within 120 meters of the subject property on February 19th, 2021. Was also circulated to all agencies, service providers, school boards by email as prescribed in the Planning Act, and a sign was posted along the frontage of the property on February 18th, 2021. A notice was also provided in the Wasaga Sun newspaper on February 18th, 2021. This provided 20 days notice for the public meeting, and this meeting is therefore properly constituted as required by the Planning Act. I'm just going to digress that we're talking about Block 196 in Plan 51M 914 Wasaga Riverwoods Homes, Inc. My apologies. The purpose and effect of the proposed official plan amendment would facilitate the development of a 6-story, 86-unit residential apartment building. The proposed development will result in a density of 87 units per net hectare, which is considered high-density residential. Therefore, an official plan amendment is required to permit the high-density residential uses on the subject lands. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit 6 stories where only 4 stories are permitted. As a result of the circulation of the notice of public meeting, the following written comments were received. Letters of support, none. Letters of no objection, Bell Canada and the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board respectively provided comments not expressing any objection to the proposed development and requesting conditions to be included in any approval of the proposed development. Canada Post stated that the project will receive mail delivery to a centralized mail facility via lockbox assembly or mail room. Letters of concern, none. Letters of objection, none. I'll turn to our staff, Mr. Wetherall. Congratulations on your new position. Have we received any further letters of correspondence in regard to this application?
Good morning, members of council. Yes, we have received roughly 18 pieces of correspondence, basically all in objection of the proposal.
Okay. Thank you. The town planning staff will now make a brief presentation and will provide further details with respect to the proposed official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. And I'll turn it over to staff, please.
Good morning again. Can everybody see the public meeting presentation? Perfect. So basically, as Member Foster stated, that this is a public meeting for an official plan amendment, OPA 03-20, and a zoning bylaw amendment 000720 for Wasaga Riverwood Homes, Inc., being Block 196, Plan 51M 914. Basic overview of the presentation will provide a brief summary of the application. I'll present the description of the lands and proposed development, as well provide summary of comments received to date, as well as outline the next steps and questions and submissions to entertain at the end of the presentation. The purpose of the meeting, as stated previously, is required under the Planning Act for an application for an official plan amendment, as well as a zoning bylaw amendment. Town staff will produce the applicant's proposal to council and the general public for comments. Comments can be either verbally or written as part of this presentation. The application was received from Riverwood Homes and deemed complete on was submitted in July of 2020 and were deemed complete of January 2021. The property is located on the south side of River Road West, just west of Westbury Road. Property does not have a municipal number addressed to it. As you can see in the air photo, that the property abuts south of River Road West and east of Westbury Road. It is currently a vacant piece of parcel of land. It has 69 meters of frontage with an irregular lot depth, and it's approximately 1 hectare in size. Surrounding uses consist of residential to the east and west, as well as a trailer park across the road on the other side of River Road West, as well as township-owned lands to the south. As stated previously by the councillor, notice of public meeting was issued in the newspaper, which was dated February 18th, as well as mailed to all landowners within 120 meters, as well as installing a sign on the subject lands, which you can see in the photo. Sidetrack that there has been a lot of correspondence in regards to notification, specifically to the property identified as 16 Westbury Road. Under the Planning Act, the Ontario Planning Act, it states that circulation of notices to a condominium corporation does not have to go to each individual unit owner, but it can be sent directly to the condominium corporation, which is what we provided to. Although we did advertise as stated in the newspaper and as a sign on the property. The current official plan designation is a dual designation. It has residential to the southwest of the lands, as well as a downtown core designation. The proposed building location will be located in the downtown core designation, which does permit medium and high density residential uses, which include triplexes, fourplexes, back-to-back townhouses, small-scale apartments, low-rise and high-rise apartment buildings, and other such uses. The current zoning bylaw, 2003-60, is amended. The property is currently zoned downtown core 2 hold zone, environmental protection exception 6 zone, and residential 3 hold zone. I believe the residential 3 hold zone is a previous zoning left over from the previous approval. The uses permitted in the downtown core 2 zone include a apartment dwelling, townhouse, and triplex, as well as a fourplex complex. Existing zoning surrounding the subject lands consist of environmental protection zone, residential type 1 zone, and as well as the downtown core 1 and 2 hold zones. Here's a conceptual site plan of the proposed proposal. As you can see, they're proposing a 6-story residential building fronting close to River Road West, while the remaining rear of the lands will be used for parking, as well as a future play area and parkland or parkette area. Entrance to the subject lands will be located to the west side of the property along River Road West. Here is the concept, elevation concept provided by the applicant. As you can see, this is looking from the rear of the property, indicating the structure being 6 stories in height, which is the need for the official plan amendment. The proposed official plan amendment, as stated earlier, is to permit the development of 86 units, total residential apartment building on a portion of the subject lands. In effect, this will permit a high density residential apartment, where at a density of 87 units per net hectare by way of site-specific policy to the current designation. The proposed zoning is downtown 2 core hold, as stated earlier. This zone category will permit a maximum building height of 6 stories. So they're requesting relief to go from 4 stories to 6 stories. This public meeting is required under the Planning Act. This is township staff presenting the applicant's proposal. Township staff has not completed a detailed review of the applications, but in the future, staff will provide a recommendation report following the council presentation at a later date. Next steps will obviously, as you can see in the processing timeline, we're currently at the public meeting. Once all comments are received and a full analysis is completed, we'll prepare a recommendation report to council for approval or denial, and it will be council's decision at that time. That is everything from Township's presentation.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Your you're actually showing your history there. We're a town, not a township.
Oh, my apologies.
No worries. Let me go back here now. Does the applicant or their representative wish to provide any further details with respect to the proposed development? If so, come on and identify yourself, please. And you've got some time.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Christine Loft, and I'm the planning consultant on behalf of Wasaga Riverwoods. Thank you, Todd. With me on the call is also Clayton Capes, who's the engineer on the file representing Wasaga Riverwoods. So if there's questions regarding engineering, then I would invite Clayton to speak or respond to those questions. So I'll try not to duplicate too much of Todd's initial comments, but the site is located on the southeast side of River Road West between Beck Street and Westbury Street in the downtown core area. The access does have frontage onto River Road West. The property is vacant, undeveloped land, and as you can see, the majority or all of the site is treed. The rear of the lands are identified as being within a portion of the Wasaga Dunes ANSI and also within adjacent lands to the Wasaga Beach PSW, which is located to the east. The lot area is 1 hectare and the property has a lot frontage of 69 meters. So we do require an official plan amendment as well as a zoning bylaw amendment, which Todd has already indicated. The official plan designates the land's downtown core, open space, and it also has Natural Heritage System Category 1 within the official plan. The vision for the downtown core area is characterized by a concentration of employment uses, retail space, residential uses in a compact mixed-use form that will create critical mass of people and uses to create a vibrant and successful core. And the densities, which Todd did speak on, but the residential densities in the downtown core may exceed those permitted in Section 5.2, which the planning report goes into in more detail. In terms of the zoning, the lands are zoned the downtown core and environmental protection. As Todd's indicated, there is an odd little triangular piece of R3, which he's corrected is just left over from the previous approval. We had previously spoken about this with staff, and I think it's just was a mapping glitch that when the zoning was updated, that it kept that small triangular piece of R3. So that would be caught up with this amendment as well, or corrected. And the exception 6 on the property was part of the original or previous proposal as well, but permitted for a passive park within the area identified, which I'll show you in a moment. So sorry, Todd, if you can just go back for 1 sec. The permitted uses do include an apartment building with the maximum height of 4 stories. There are no changes proposed to the EP6 zone. And I've already identified. Thanks, Todd. So in terms of this site plan, I'll just give some high-level comments. So the property is 1 hectare in size. It's a bit of an odd lot configuration, like a reversed L. The proposal is for a 6-story multi-residential structure. The site is, of course, serviced with municipal services and utilizes an existing drainage block. It's in the hatched on the right side of your screen that is known as Block 216. It is a drainage easement that the town of Wasaga Beach currently owns. In discussions with staff during pre-consultation, the location of the building at the front of the site was an important component to the overall vision of the area. And as such, there were a few reiterations of the plan which pushed the building closer to River Road West rather than having sort of a sea of parking at the front. Access to the site is from a 6-meter wide access, which of course would be a private laneway. The parking and vehicular circular drive at the main entrance, which you can see on the site plan. And I will point out there is of course a large front door facing River Road West, but it's expected that obviously people utilizing the parking lot or drop off would access via the main entrance identified on the plan. The barrier-free visitor spaces are located in close proximity to that main entrance. There are the amenity space located a parkette at the rear of the site, the future play area, and there's also amenity space within the building, which I'll talk about in a moment, as well as a rooftop patio. There is also trail connectivity at the back of the lot, or at the back of the property, which will connect to the existing town trail system. And I'll just point out that the parking lot is or will utilize permeable pavers, which is a main component of the proposed stormwater system, in addition to the existing drainage easement within Block 216. In terms of the site or the building breakdown, then there are 86 units proposed, and the breakdown is on the slide: 21 one-bedroom units, 31 at one bedroom plus a den, and then 34 two-bedroom units. There's 109 parking spaces proposed, and the breakdown is identified on the screen. There are 22 bicycle parking spaces, and is also lockers. For each unit, there is a locker located on the same floor as the unit. There is amenity space on the main floor and the parkette at the rear. This is just a quick list of the technical reports that have been provided. I would just note that there was an environmental impact study completed, as well as a tree preservation report completed by Riverstone, who did work with the Conservation Authority prior to providing the reports, and also completed site visits with NVCA. And then, as I identified, Capes Engineering completed all of the engineering pieces, including the functional servicing. Next slide, Todd. So I just have a couple of slides on the architecture. So the architecture has prepared all of the architectural drawings for the site. The submission has included all of the elevations, as well as all of the detailed floor plans. The first floor would include 13 residential units, as well as 2 amenity spaces. And these amenity spaces might include, gym facilities, social gathering spaces, yoga room, those types of things. The main floor would also include a mailroom, lockers for the units on that first floor, 2 large lobby areas, one at the rear door, or what we've called the main entrance, and then one at the front door as well. This is the elevation looking from the east, so basically standing in the parking lot looking at the building. The final facades will, of course, be confirmed as we move through site plan approval. However, the rendering provides, I think, council and the public with an idea of the variety of materials that are proposed, extent of windows, balconies, variety and range of exterior materials, and that the lower floor is distinguished separately for pedestrian-oriented ground floor. I would note that if I haven't provided all of the elevations, I've just chosen this one, but I know that all of the architecture is on the town's website, so certainly someone could go and review all of the elevations and the floor plans on the municipal website. Next slide, please. And there was quite a bit of back and forth with staff, so I just thought I would show this. One of the new provisions within the zoning bylaw, or I'll say new because I think maybe this is the first time that I've had to delve into it, it was with this file, is the angular plane provisions within the zoning bylaw. So the amendments to the bylaw do include angular plane requirements, and the architect has provided these plans, which were required. And so as a result, there were some changes to the building in order to meet the angular plane. So to the left of the slide then is River Road West, and you can see the changes in elevation on the upper floors in order to meet the angular plan requirements. This is the elevation from the south. So if you were basically standing in the access laneway, or a little further south looking at at the building from that angle. So floors 4, 5, and 6 then have been offset from the lower floors in order to meet that 45-degree requirement. Last slide. Thanks. So the applications propose a multi-residential unit building. The units are self-contained. The proposal does include condominium tenure, with a range of units and number of bedrooms. The site is on River Road West and Arterial Road and is certainly in close proximity to nearby services and the local conveniences within the community. The proposed residential use will expand the housing options within the area and introduce additional apartment units within the community. And so just to conclude, the development is consistent with provincial policy. The development does conform to the growth plan. It also conforms to the county official plan as well as the local town official plan. And the development generally complies with the zoning bylaw. Those are my comments, and certainly they're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. There may be questions, but we'll start with questions from the public. So I'll turn it over to the clerk, please, to if she can find those people who have pre-registered for the Zoom meeting to provide comments. If you could quarterback that part, please.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. We do have a few members of the public that have signed in to join. And I'm just going to call upon Bill Winkles. Bill, I know we had a little test meeting with your Zoom. If you would look down to the left-hand corner, the mute and the video, if you would turn those on so your microphone and video is on. And perhaps, Christine, if you could unshare your screen so that we will be able to see Bill. Thank you. There, Bill. There you are.
Am I in this is new to me, so bear with me. Okay, hopefully I'm in your screen and you can see me.
Yes.
And the audio is clear?
Yes.
Beautiful. I have prepared a written statement, so please bear with me. I would like to thank the mayor, town council, and staff for allowing me the opportunity to discuss our concerns regarding this proposal. My name is Bill Winkles. I'm a retired real estate professional of 30 years. I know how property values are affected by surrounding developments. I currently live at 16 Westbury Road, which abuts the proposed development. I have a petition from 19 owners showing opposition to this development. I would have had more if we'd been notified and because of the COVID-19 restrictions in place. Let's be clear. We never received any notices regarding zoning changes to the subject property from R3 townhomes to DC apartment, and no notice of this proposal before us today. These are major land use changes that were not communicated to us, which greatly impact the use and enjoyment of our homes. I'm sure the town staff followed the existing protocols and procedures to notify adjoining property owners, but this notification system is flawed and needs to be examined. A question should have arisen when there was no opposition to an important zoning change from any of the unit owners at 16 Westbury. You're able to send us tax bills, water bills, but not important notifications regarding issues that seriously affect us. It's not right. If we knew the zoning change, you would have heard from us. We deserve better. When the developer bought the property, they knew it was zoned for, and it wasn't an apartment. They had that changed, and now we're trying to change even more. Personally, if I knew the land beside me was zoned DC and not R3, I wouldn't ever have bought here. I didn't choose to move to Barrie or Collingwood, but Wasaga Beach for its small town charming character. No big high density apartments here. Now let's discuss the subject proposal to increase the size of an apartment from 4 to 6 stories. Wow, we didn't even know there was going to be an apartment here in the first place. This proposed development doesn't fit the neighborhood profile. Clear cutting a forest with wetlands and wildlife habitat isn't the right thing to do. We see a multitude of birds, deer, and possible endangered animals and plant life on the property. This could also impact groundwater supplies. We have reached out to the Ministry of Environment and the Nottawasaga Conservation Authority to inquire more about these concerns. Let's talk impacts, property values. From my experience as a realtor, I know what buyers want and don't want. If this proposal is adopted, the values in our building will decrease. Possible buyers don't want to stare at an 80-foot wall of brick and glass that will block out the sun and look into somebody else's home 60 feet away. They also don't want to look over a paved parking lot of 109 spaces or a 20-foot wide stormwater management system. Why would the developer think buyers of their units wouldn't object to the same scenario? The building is too close and needs separation or downsizing. This isn't downtown Toronto where space is an extreme premium. More green space and large trees are needed to create privacy and a buffer zone. The parking lot is too close to our building as well. 25-foot high light standards that can create light pollution. Plus there will be an increase in traffic and noise. It's just too much. Removing parking spaces on the east side of the lot and planting some trees to create more separation is a suggestion, but what about snow removal? Where does that end up, and has that been addressed? The storm management system is another issue. 20 feet wide, and it runs the whole eastern side of the property. Our balconies and patios will overlook it. You know how these things look after a few years. Garbage, sediment, stink, mosquitoes, overgrowth, it just won't do. Maybe a buried tunnel instead. Also, there's a transformer box right next to the edge of the property, which could produce noise and possible EMFs. This should be moved. There are many ways this developer can improve this plan so it doesn't present such detrimental impacts on resale value, the use, enjoyment, and quality of life of the current residents living at 16 Westbury. Not to mention the years of construction, noise, and dirt we would have to endure. Limit the proposal to 4 stories to reduce its impact. Change placement and downside the structure to lessen privacy and shading concerns. Modify, change the parking lot and storm management plan to ensure clean, robust, and long-term solutions for drainage and create buffer zones, green spaces, and separation. We reject the current proposal as it stands. This is in some minor variance, and proposal isn't appropriate for the area and the land. No to the 6-story structure. No to the current proposal as it's laid out. No to the loss of wildlife habitat, wetlands, and forests. Climate change, anyone? We here at 16 Westbury contribute in excess of $100,000 a year in tax revenue. Most of us are retired and support the local community as well. We ask that our elected representatives protect our interests. I'm sure if you had to deal with this situation in your backyard, you wouldn't want it, or at least you would limit its impact. The developer needs to go back to the drawing board and supply a couple of other scenarios to address our concerns, or better yet, sell and move on. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. I'll open it if staff or the proponent want to make any comment. If not, we'll go to the next person. Doug, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to speak to Mr. Winkle's concern about the giving of notice, and I really appreciate his comments. It's something that we've struggled with for some time. We do comply with the giving of notice for the Planning Act, and in that giving of notice, it says send the notice to the property owner, which we did. But we realize that in situations like this, such as a condo, it also happens if it's a rental apartment. Not all the tenants would get formal notice. So over the years, what we've done is we've exceeded the minimum requirements, and we take the time to post a sign on the property, and we also put it in the newspaper. And putting it in the newspaper, we are a snowbird community. Maybe not last year or this year, but we've recognized over time that there are neighbors who can link or log into the town newspaper, the Wasaga Sun, from afar to see what's going on. So the town, we do take extra efforts. We do recognize Mr. Winkle's concern. And we try to do our best to make sure that the word gets out with the methods available to us.
Thank you, Doug. I will remind again, this is part of a process, so decisions have not been finalized at this point. I'll pass it back to the clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Winkle. You can turn off your video at this point, and I'll call on the next person. So I have Keith. I'm sorry, Sanshragan. Keith, are you on the call, and would you turn on your mic and video? There we go.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, we can't see.
Well, hang on, I'll try it again. There,
There you are.
got it? Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. I didn't really prepare anything in writing. I thought that Bill Winkles did a fantastic job at outlaying our concerns and disapproval with the change from 4 to 6. I would only add that one thing that I was surprised at is there is going to be a rooftop patio, which again would enable the people over there to be able to look into some of the units on the west side of our building, which again, privacy issues are a big concern. The other issue for me is that the erosion, as Bill said, it seems to be an open kind of evacuation of the water, and to me that always is a problem, as Bill mentioned, with debris, mosquitoes, that kind of thing. And then lastly, I think my big concern also is that we don't have as a province and as a country many wetlands left. That to me is critical. As I read through this, I see that there's a lot of habitat in the area that's going to be affected. I'm sure that we could have looked at another area to put this type of structure in, considering how damaging this could be to the wetlands that now exist. Again, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that. I think, your concerns were addressed to us and will be addressed by staff. They'll be taken into consideration moving forward. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I have Cindy Megafin as the next person on our list. However, I do not see her on the call unless I'm missing that, but I don't see her there. We can also circle back to see if she joins. I have next Monica Bach. Would you turn on your video and unmute yourself? Thank you, Monica.
Good morning to Madam Mayor and the Council of Wasaga Beach. I'm referring to the proposed official plan amendment, file number OP03/20, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, file number Z07/20. As I said, my name is Monica Botch, and I live at 20 White Sands Way in Wasaga Beach. Thank you for letting me being the registered participant. I oppose to this development, and here are my reasons why. Number one, with a 6-story, 86-unit residential apartment building, this just seems to be an extremely high density for the small area of land, and as being neighbors approximately 500 yards behind this development, this is totally unacceptable. Number two, due to the high density, we are concerned about the noise for us, our neighbors, and for the provincial forest, which has a public walking trail, which is approximately halfway between our properties. Number three, one of the most important points of a 6-story, 86-unit residential apartment The building height is totally unacceptable. Due to privacy reasons to the property owners nearby, including ourselves and to the public who choose to use the provincial forest trail walkway on a daily basis. Number 4, this 6-story, 86-unit residential apartment building is immediately pressing up to a provincial forest, and the negative impact on the robins, the blue jays, the doves, the sparrows, hummingbirds, woodpeckers, squirrels, the rabbits, the deer, and all the wildlife in this part of the provincial forest will be severe and thus totally unacceptable. 4.1. It is a proven fact by many studies, including Toronto, that once you build and go higher, 2 to 3 floors, birds flying directly into the window glass as they think the reflection is the sky. They are normally killed by the impact on the window glass or when they fall down 3 or more floors. This fact alone could easily eliminate all the bird population in this part of the provincial forest. Thank you for letting me present, Madam Mayor and the Council.
Thank you very much for your comments. As I said previously, they'll become part of the record and staff and the developer will consider them moving forward.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. And the next person on our list is Maria Schmidt. If you would start your video and unmute yourself, and we'll join the meeting. I do see Maria here. I've asked to unmute as well through the system. And we can circle back to Cindy. However, I do not see her on the call, and Lily Scardicchio, but she has not joined as well. So the last member of the public to speak would be Maria. And perhaps she is away from the desk because she's not joining. So unfortunately we can move on.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll move on to, if council have any comments, then before I do the wrap up, we'll ask her one more time, okay?
Thank you.
So I'll therefore ask members of committee if they have any questions or comments concerning the proposed development. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During the presentation, there was a reference to a previous approval on the lands by the planning staff. And some of the residents that have spoken today have reached out to me. Some of my questions or their concerns, I guess, have been answered. But one of the things was they said that they were looking at townhouses next door when they purchased their properties. When was the downtown core proposal brought into existence or passed into law? I think I know that it was around June 2018, but I just wanted confirmation if I could.
Doug, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The zoning bylaw and the official plan were changed in June of 2018. That's when council considered those two bylaws. They're directly related to the downtown development master plan and the creation of the downtown node, which the intention was to focus intensification and different forms of housing within that node. I can say that both the official plan and the zoning bylaw for the downtown node were appealed on site-specific basis. And they didn't actually come into force and effect until January of 2020 when LPAT finally did approve them. So they were originally considered by council in June of 2018 and more recently came into force in January of 2020. So it was at that time where the zoning went from an R3 zone on the subject property to the downtown zone, which permitted at that time maximum 4 stories.
Okay, follow up. to that, but I guess the reality is without the objections and going to LPAT June of 2018, I guess the question would be, leading up to that, what were there public meetings and circulations about the downtown master plan that would have addressed all the people in the neighborhood at that time, which would have allowed the downtown plan to come into force?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chairman, there was an approximately 2 to 2.5 year long process leading to the creation of that first downtown node. There were numerous public open houses, and all of them had been advertised through the newspaper. When the actual official plan and zoning bylaw were brought forward to create this downtown node, there was a formal public meeting held, much like this one that's occurring right now for this proposal. And it too had been advertised. In that one, because it was such a broad change, it wasn't a single property, but many properties. The mail out went to every single property owner within the downtown node, but also to every single property owner within 400 feet of that downtown node. And it was also advertised in the newspaper. That would have occurred early summer of 2018.
Okay, so it went through the proper process at that time, and so all that would have been in place except for going from 4 to 6 stories. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And one, I guess, final question would be, is this an actual rental apartment building, or is it a for sale condominium building? I heard the planner mentioned something about condominium tenure or something in there. So I'm confused when you say an apartment building. It's not, I don't see anything specific saying that it's going to be for rent or not.
Through you, Mr. Chair, possibly Ms. Loft can better respond to that question.
Go ahead, Christine. You're muted.
Sorry. It is proposed to be a condominium. So the units are apartment units, but the ownership or tenure would be condominium.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none. And I did I did reach out by the messaging system here to try and get Maria, and I've had no reply that I can see. So I will carry on. I will remind anyone who's spoken today, or anyone who's viewing this, that they do have the ability to make comments, and I'm going to tell you how right now. So comments received today will be considered, and a decision on this application will be made at a future meeting as to whether committee will recommend the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to proceed further through the approvals process. Anyone receiving notice of the public meeting will receive notice of council's decision on this matter. If you did not receive the notice of public meeting and would like to receive a copy of the notice of council's decision, please contact Planning Department, leave your name and address to be added to the circulation list to make a written request to the clerk to the town of Wasaga Beach. And I will just ask for a little clarification, perhaps from the clerk. I know Mr. Winkles said he was representing 18 individuals there. If they're listed, they will each get their own reply on that.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't have a list of 18 people. I imagine the planner would have that list, and normally the planner communicates with all of the individuals on the file. So I would ask that Todd would get in touch with them.
Okay. Todd, you had something?
Yes, member or Chair Foster. We do have a petition of 18 roughly signatures in opposition with their emails. So what we'll do is we'll reach out via email for proper mailing address, and we'll have their contact, and we'll send them any decision rendering.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. If that is everything, I will call this public meeting closed, and I'll return the chair to Councillor Kinney. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster, and great job done by all. Moving forward, I've been notified from staff that Councillor Watson, and please, Councillor Watson, confirm this, that you have a preliminary or pecuniary interest concern with 5.5.1. And I believe at that time the chair will notify that too. I just wanted to get that into record right away. We'll move on to 3.2 unfinished business. We have none at this time. We'll move down to 3.3 other agencies report and fire department monthly report. And at this time, I'll call our chief to chat, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair, your worship, members of council. The fire department responded to 121 calls for service in the month of February. There were no structure fires or any other significant incidents worth noting. At the last coordinated committee meeting, I had mentioned that the fire department's UTV had already been used 3 in 2021. We're up to 7 times now. None of these incidents were major. However, without this type of vehicle, those incidents would have been much more difficult to deal with. So again, it's one of those pieces of equipment that, you know, it may not get used one winter, and then here we are up to 7 times. So we are back to in-person Tuesday night training. However, we're dividing our firefighters into 4 smaller groups. We rotate them through different training modules, and of course, screening is in place and masks are worn. Some disappointing news. Yesterday, we discovered that the roof of our training building out back of Station 1 did not fare too well over the winter. So now we're going to be exploring options to repair or rebuild the roof on that unit. And as most of council, I believe all the council knows, those are tractor trailer units. So there was no indication that we had to do any bracing or anything with those roofs. Those tractor trailers sit outside often, and I haven't heard of this happening before, but we do have to fix that unit up. We get good use out of it, so we'll be looking to repair it. And finally, as a reminder to our residents, please stay back from waterways. The spring melt does pose additional hazards. Be sure to educate children and also keep your pets away as well. As per usual at this time of year, in cooperation with our Public Works Department, I will be keeping a close eye on our flooding risks in our community. There is currently some flooding that maybe our Director of Public Works will talk about. That's happening in the west end of town, and that's on the typical streets off of Beechwood Road. I did notice this morning that the river is starting to open up in spots, which is good. That'll hopefully avoid some ice jams and certainly reduce flooding risks in those areas along the Nottawasaga. And that, Mr. Chair, is my report.
Thank you, Chief. And please, Councillor Belanger, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And to the Chief, I didn't notice so much on weekdays, but I try to have a coffee down at the beachfront every day. But on the weekends, there seem to be a lot of people too far out on the ice on Beach 1. And I didn't know if there was any opportunity or action that could be taken, whether it was through the park or whatever. It's very difficult. They're out far enough that, you know, you can't really scream at them and they're strewing down the entire beachfront. But certainly, you know, there's good signage and everything, but maybe some preventive ATV action with somebody, you know, going out at peak time and giving a personal message. I don't know if that's viable or not, but certainly I was concerned at how many people and how far out they were. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Belanger. Yes, as you mentioned, we do have signage down there. This is a problem that's gone on for many years. We've had incidents out there. We've had a fatality out there. It is something we could look at in next year, maybe. It becomes an issue of resources, putting staff personnel out there and patrolling the beach. Where you start and where you stop. I mean, to cover all 6 beach areas, that's a lot of beach area. I do know the main area that you see a lot of people walking is Beach Area 1 because they can park there and walk down. So that's something we could discuss and look at for next season.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any other comments? Not seeing any, I'll just make a quick one. I'd like to thank the Chief for his update with regards to water safety. I know that's always an issue this time of year, and to hear it, and we just can't hear it enough. And I want to thank Councillor Belanger with the comment, because I too also have seen people out in the ice. That being said, now, not seeing any more comments, I'd like to read the motion. Resolve that the Community Service Section and the Coordinated Committee receive the February 2021 Fire Department report for information. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Foster and Councillor Belanger. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'd like to call for a vote, please. All in favor? That's unanimous, 7-1. Now I'd like to move down to the consent agenda 3.4. I'm going to read the consent agenda, and this time I'm not seeing anything pulled. That being said, that we can still pull stuff. Resolved that the Community Service Section of the Coordinated Committee hereby receive the March 11th, 2021 consent agenda items 3.4 through 3.7, and that all recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding items, agenda items pulled in the motion and voted on separately. I don't see anything pulled. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Belanger and Deputy Mayor Bray. I'm still not seeing any comments. I'd like to call the vote. All in favor? That would be 7-1. Moved in. 7-0. That's unanimous. And looking down, I believe that completes the Community Service Section of the Coordinating Committee. And at this time, I'd like to turn the chair over to Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kinney. We're now moving into the public works section of the agenda. We have no deputations or presentations today. Under unfinished business, we do have a motion, a notice of motion that we had from a previous meeting. It is moved by Councillor Kinney. I will read the motion now. Whereas it's about the reduction of the town speed limit. Whereas several municipalities in Ontario are looking at reducing their urban speed limit from 50 kilometers to 40 kilometers to increase pedestrian and cyclist safety. Whereas a pedestrian struck by a motor vehicle going 40 kilometers is 97% more likely to survive the collision than if struck at 50 kilometers per hour. Whereas the current speed limit in the town of Wasaga Beach is 50 kilometers per hour as per the Highway Traffic Act of Ontario. And whereas several municipalities are reviewing reducing their municipality speed to 40 kilometers per hour in an attempt to increase pedestrian and cyclist safety. Therefore, be it resolved that town staff be directed to investigate the feasibility, pros and cons of reducing the speed limit on town roads to 40 kilometers per hour and report back to council with their findings and recommendations. Do I have a seconder for that? I am happy to second the motion myself. So So we do have a seconder, so it's now on the table. Is there any comments on this? Deputy Mayor Bray, and then Councillor Kinney.
Thank you. Just that when staff report back, if they could also consult with the police to see if there's any way to enforce a lower speed limit, because my struggle with adjusting the speed limits at this point is there isn't very good or very consistent policing of the current speed limits. A lot of the problems we have right now in town with speeds aren't because people are doing the posted speed limits. It's because they're already breaking the rules. So if we lower the rule and we have no way to enforce it, I don't know that this motion would make sense. So I'd like to see the staff report consider an enforcement process, I guess. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Kinney, then Mayor Byfolchi, and then Councillor Belanger, I think I saw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep my points brief, but I just want to run through a few facts. Reducing speed does save lives and reduce the severity of injuries when collisions happen. I've read some of the communities in Ontario, like Prescott, reducing municipal roadways to 40 kilometers an hour. Others, such as the township of Chemagami, Hamilton, reducing their speed limit in their urban center and neighborhood to 40, and still others like Bradford, Guelph, and Midland looking into reducing their speed limit to 40. All seem to cite traffic concerns and pedestrian safety as major concerns. Currently in Wasaga Beach, we have one of the largest senior population in Simcoe County, and from the number of new homes being built, we also hope to encourage new young families to move here. Reducing the town speed limit would make both sectors safer. Traffic enforcement is one mandate of the OPP, but not the only one, and rightfully on many occasions their good efforts to manage speed issues in town are limited to resources and the need to address more urgent, serious calls for service to take them away from their traffic duties. One of the jobs of the town is to make our communities safe. From roads to building codes to bylaws to water quality, to name a few. The town also has a limited ability to make our community safe, so it's incumbent that each of us take ownership of our own safety. This being said, a reduction in speed limit would aid in this venture. In conclusion, all communities mentioned above are unique, as in Wasaga Beach. So my request to council and staff is not to immediately lower the speed limit, but to investigate the pros and cons and determine if it is or it is not right fit for a community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Byfolchi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just add, similar to Deputy Mayor Bray, is to get some feedback from the local OPP as to, because it is an enforcement issue, and it might not matter what the speed is, people are still going to go above it. But I think it's also important that we do some sort of a survey or something and engage the public. I think some public that I hear from, 50 throughout town, is slow to them. So, you know, they're doing 70 now. So by going to 40, are we really going to make a change or anything like that? But I'd also like to have a public piece to this throughout. Thank you.
Councillor Belanger.
Yes, further to the mayor and deputy mayor, my experience is that, that the 50 is probably not as much a problem as the speeding at 60 and 70. There could be an argument that if you reduce it to 40, maybe they don't speed as high. But I just want to, and I'm sure staff will bring it up, the uniqueness of our town is we're a very narrow, long town, and we have very limited roadways that go the full distance. And we have a lot of people in our town that also earn their livelihood with deliveries, taxi cabs, all of those things. And I didn't sense or haven't heard through statistics up until this point that traffic incidents or pedestrian injuries would warrant the reduction. But I would certainly agree with the motion that if staff wants to do a study, again, we tax our staff with an awful lot to do. So I don't know where this sits in their priority, but when we talk about the timelines coming back to council, maybe that should be a consideration. Thank you.
Are there any further comments from anyone from council? I've got a couple myself then. I did actually, before the pandemic hit, probably last February, I had a conversation with Inspector Brown of the Huronia West Detachment about this very issue. I asked him what his thought was if Wasaga Beach became a 40-kilometer town. Every entrance to town, big signs saying we are 40 kilometers throughout. He didn't express an objection to it. He came up with a couple of alternatives. He did mention about enforcement, but I guess my thought is that whatever the speed limit is, it has to be enforced. So if it's 50, it has to be enforced. If it's 40, it has to be enforced. It's just where the fines kick in or the demerit points and that go with it. But most people do seem to go 10 to 15 over. So at 50, you're doing 65. At 40, you're going to do 55, which has to be safer for our citizens. Inspector Brown deferred back to photo radar. He heavily suggested that if that would be as good a deterrent probably to use that, and he gave me some tips about using that. So there wasn't a lot of objection at that time. It just, enforcement's enforcement, I guess. Our whole town is pretty much residential from one end to the other. Our main thoroughfare, the pass-through is River Road West. It's 95% residential all the way through, just about any area. So we're always dealing with residential neighborhoods. And we are seeing a lot of municipalities that are moving to this because speeding seems to be an issue everywhere, unfortunately. And we have a lot of hot spots in town. So I am supportive of having staff do a report back, and the public piece is important too, as the mayor has suggested. So, Councillor Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe our Director of Public Works, Kevin Lalonde, was indicating he'd like to say something. I hope I'm correct, Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, certainly we can advance a feasibility study on this. Further to Councillor Belanger's point, however, with the shortfall in our engineering division right now being an individual short, as well as the development pressures and capital program for this year, this is something that we would outsource through RFP to undertake this study. My recommendation would be that we do come back to committee with the terms of reference for that study, so committee is aware of kind of the direction we propose to go to look at the research, the literature review, the pros and cons, the costing, whether we want additional traffic data and speed data throughout the community, engaging the OPP and understanding the burden on their ability to manage increased enforcement, or understanding what the existing accident and collision history is relative to pedestrians and cyclists. But the recommendation would be that we do prepare terms of reference and come back to committee, so we have an exhaustive list of priorities to address, and committee is on board with the approach we're going to take before we go to RFP.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything further at this time? Just remind everyone, we do have a 40-kilometer zone in town, which is down the main beach area. That was changed, I guess, a few years ago. So they're enforcing that, I assume. So it's not exactly new to the municipality. I know it's a shorter area, but still we do have that. So this point, I will call for the vote. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing them all. One. Do we have unanimity? I think we do. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. That is passed unanimously. Okay, we're now, there's no other agency reports. We're now to the consent agenda, and I understand Councillor Belanger did not want to pull a couple of items, but he had comments, I think, on 4.5.13 and 4.5.16. Is that correct, Councillor Belanger?
Yes, that is correct. I can make the comments now if you like. It's the same comment for both. I just wanted to congratulate our Public Works and Kevin Lalonde and Aqua, who works closely with us. Again, our year-end reports were extremely positive, 100%. In both cases, there were a few opportunities noted for improvement, but you know, it's so easy to take water quality for granted. However, within Canada and the US, there have been situations in recent years where that hasn't been the case. But again, I just want to, I'm very thankful and congratulate that we have such high quality water here in Wasaga Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. And yes, we do a great job with our water and wastewater system. So thank you to all the staff and for doing that for us. Okay, we have under the consent agenda, we have only one item pulled that I'm aware of, which is 4.5.8 under engineering. So I will read the motion. Resolved that the Public Works section of Coordinated Committee hereby receives the March 11th, 2021 consent agenda items 4.4 through to 4.7, and that all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Kinney, and a seconder, Councillor Foster. Thank you very much. Any questions on that? If not, those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to 4.5.8 engineering, River Road West and Theme Park Drive future intersection improvements. Is resolved that Public Works section of Coordinated Committee does hereby receive the River Road West and Theme Park Drive future intersection improvements report for information, and further that the preferred solution for the future intersection improvements includes introduction of traffic signals rather than a roundabout, and further that staff advise the owners of the Pioneer gas station at 535 River Road West of this decision, as it has an effect on their current site configuration and significant bearing on the proposed site plan application for expansion / improvements to the site, and further that staff confirm with the owners of the Pioneer gas station that the town will pursue the option to deem a southerly portion of the existing River Road West right-of-way, approximately 18 meters width, as surplus to sell that portion of the right-of-way to the owners in order to facilitate the proposed site development wholly within the private lands, rather than requiring an encroachment agreement between the town and owner. Okay, and so can I have a mover for that motion, please? Mayor by Fulci, and a seconder, Councillor Wells. And I'll open it up for discussion at this point. Are there any comments from anything other than, I pulled the item, so are there any other comments? Okay, I guess my question to staff would be about the sale of the 18 meters of road allowance along there. It's a little bit of an unorthodox situation along that road allowance, as staff will adhere to. River Road West or Highway 92 out there widens out for a particular length. I'm not sure if it's a kilometer or two, becomes very wide. It's almost like a 4-lane highway and goes across these properties, Pioneer gas station, right up past the Osborne's castle and that. So I guess my question would be, by selling off this 18 meters in that one location, what's the fate of the rest of this widened road allowance as we go up? I know it's in front of the Carruthers Davidson Funeral Home, and I'm not sure. I don't think it goes quite up to the arena, but it goes for a little area there, and it starts up around Golf Course Road that comes out just around the cutting edge and goes all the way up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. It's it is a 60-meter road allowance that extends at least to the arena. And staff have confirmed that, and as noted in the report, we have undertaken an EA, and we do know kind of what the anticipated cross-section is through that corridor in terms of, even if it's a 4-lane, even with the road allowance, if we deem the surplus, we will have sufficient availability to have a separated bike facility as well as appropriate boulevard widths and sidewalks. So, moving forward, should we consider a similar approach for properties to the east, we certainly will retain the land needs to accommodate the ultimate cross-section with additional lands available for whether it be street tree planting, but certainly the separated bike lane facilities. So at this point, we're specifically just looking for a confirmation on this particular property. But you're right, as we get into the long-term improvements to River Road West as we move east, or if these lots redevelop, that discussion may come to the table again.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I just, once you sell the one piece, it breaks it up, so you're almost obligated to do something as you go along, I guess. But okay, well, if your staff is satisfied with that. Any other comments? Seeing none, call the vote. Those in favor? That is passed unanimously, that motion. And I think that brings to the end the public works section of the agenda. Is there any need for a break at this point before we go to the rest? I'm saying yes. Okay, come back. It's now 10:15. Is 10:30 too late, or 10:25? Pardon? I can't hear anyone.
Looking for 10 minutes, I believe, Chair.
10 minutes? Okay, 10:25. We'll be back. Thank you.
And we're back live.
All right, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to go into the development services section of the coordinated committee. 5.1 under deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings. We already had our public meeting today. Under unfinished business, there are a couple items, but nothing changed. I will point out, Councillor Watson, I believe, has declared a conflict on 5.5.1. So out of our consent agenda, that'll be pulled for a separate vote. I know Councillor Belanger wants to talk about 5.5, make a comment about 5.5.7, but that's actually been pulled, so we'll wait till that moment to do that. And also 5.5.2 has been pulled. So we'll go into the consent agenda, noting 5.1, 5.5.1, 5.5.2, and 5.5.7 will be voted on separately. So resolved that the Development Committee section of Coordinated Committee hereby receives the March 11th to 2021 consent agenda items 5.4 through 5.7, and that all recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding agenda items pulled from the motion and voted on separately. I'll mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kinney, Councillor Wells, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to 5.5.1, noting that Councillor Watson has declared a conflict for, I think there's a business relationship. So I'll read the motion that the Development Services section of Coordinated Committee recommend to Council that the town enter into a subdivision agreement with Haymount Investments Limited for draft plan of subdivision PS 0319, legally described as Plan 51M923, Block 24, Town of Wasaga Beach, and that the Development Services section of Coordinated Committee recommend to Council that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the subdivision agreement with Haymount Investments Limited in its substantive form, subject to the owner fulfilling the following conditions to the satisfaction of the Town of Wasaga Beach. A, clearing of all conditions of draft plan of subdivision approval. B, having the engineering drawings accepted for construction by the town. C, the owner and, as applicable, the mortgagee signing the subdivision agreement. And D, the owner submitting securities, engineering review fees, and certificate of insurance to the town's satisfaction. Does anyone have, or I'll ask for a mover and seconder on that motion, please. Councillor Kinney, Councillor Wells. Anyone have a comment related to that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. 5.5.2, this is under building department matters. It's been tugged, so we'll look at that. Coordinated Committee recommend Council delegate authority to the Chief Building Officer to enter into conditional building permit agreements with applicants pursuant to Section 8.3 or 8.3.1 of the Ontario Building Code Act 1992 SO 1992 C23, and that's pulled by Joe. Is that right? No. I jumped.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. 5.5.2 you're on?
Yeah, I think I read the wrong one though, did I not? Let me try that again.
Yeah, it's a site plan.
Yeah, sorry, that was the wrong one. Ignore my previous, let's try this again. 5.5.2 under site matters. This is that the Development Services section of the Coordinated Committee received the report from the planner on the application of site plan approval SP 03/21 for information, and that the town staff process applications for the site amendment SP 03/21 in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and that's got to do with 544 River Road West. That's the correct one. Councillor Belanger, you asked for it pulled. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted a separate vote on this because, as you know, I wanted a pause to moving forward with the construction on the arena and library. Thank you.
Fair enough. I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Bray and her worship. And all those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that's carried 6-1. Thank you very much. Okay. Now we're going to move on to 5.5.7. And yeah, okay, so this is the economic initiative matters. The economic development officers report dated March 11th, 2021, reopen patios for 2021. Someone's got me unmuted here. I'm getting feedback. Okay, I'm going to plow through it. The motion is that the Development Services Section of the Coordinating Committee recommend to Council that it approve permitting the temporary extension of restaurant patios through the Open Patios Program for a period extending to January 1st, 2022 at 3 a.m. And that Council approve no fees be applicable to the review and assessment of proposals for temporary patios offered under this program, which covers the period of March 31st, 2021 to January 1st, 2022 at 3 a.m. And that applications for temporary patios offered under this program comply with the criteria stipulated within Appendix A appended to this report, and that applications for temporary restaurant patios be exempt from the requirements of Site Plan Control Bylaw number 2010-115 for duration of the program, and that requirements of section 3.38.9 and 27.150 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2003-60 be amended, be suspended as described within this report and for the duration of the program. And finally, that the Director of Economic Initiatives be temporarily delegated the authority to suspend permissions for temporary patios on the site on a site-by-site basis, subject to non-compliance to the criteria stipulated within Appendix A appended to this report. Councillor Watson, you pulled it. I'll let you start, and then Councillor Belanger, I know you had a comment, so you can go next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that I'm happy to see this come back so quickly and early in the season. I know other communities are looking to do this. I think Barry's right on it too. So let's get going for this season and give everyone a good jump start on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, Chair. My comments are pretty much mirror Councillor Watson's. I would congratulate our economic team for getting on this so early. I think it's imperative. I wasn't at the Village of Blue this weekend, but I was told that their outdoor patios were very busy with the milder weather. And I'm thinking that ours could be very busy even this weekend. So thank you very much for being proactive.
I agree. Could have been a shorter motion to pull, but anyway, well done. I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Oh, Councillor Wells will speak first, and then I'll ask for that.
Just a question of procedure through to, I guess, Tyler or George. We passed this today, which I think is pretty much a given. When, however, does it come into effect? Can people start to move on this now, or do we have to wait until the council meeting at the end of the month to have it ratified before people can move forward with it?
I think the motion says March 31st, but I'll ask staff to verify.
When I say move forward, I think what I was looking at is they need to get the approvals in place. They still need, will our staff be processing people's requests so that they can be ready to go on March 31st, as opposed to starting the process on March 31st?
Tyler?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Speaker. Councillor Wells, we can start to advertise as soon as the council ratification this month. Getting restaurateurs lined up in the queue for kind of the review of those applications, and then effective March 31st, we can hopefully have some ready to implement those patios.
And yet still subject to council approval at the end of the month, which I don't think is an issue, but just it would still be before they can go forward subject to council approval.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair. So we can receive applications anytime after coordinated committee and be ready to issue any permits right after council approval on, if council does approve it on March 31st.
Okay, brilliant. Any other comments? I'll ask for a mover and seconder this time. Again, please, Councillor Kinney, Councillor Watson. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I think that's going to conclude the development services section. Again, although it wasn't pulled, I will just note that our numbers continue to be, I think, record-setting at this point for what activity that's going on in all those departments. So congratulations, thank you. And I will turn it over to General Government section. Deputy Mayor Bray, please.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Welcome to the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee. Today there are no deputations, presentations, petitions, or public meetings. There's one item on our unfinished business, which is the signed bylaw review. Other agency reports, there are none. We have a consent agenda today. At this point, nothing has been pulled. There were two items Councillor Belanger has requested to make a comment on. They are 6.5.1 and 6.5.3. So Councillor Belanger, if you'd like to speak to 6.5.1, the manager of beachfront properties, fleet and purchasing report, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Actually, my question will be to the CAO. I had brought this up once before, but between departments, we have a different format for how we report on RFPs. Generally, Public Works is the most comprehensive, where they provide the pricing by all of the proponents that are bidding and that type of thing. And then in these particular cases, it's not nearly as complete. And I didn't know if there had been any follow-up. It was certainly not a motion of council. It was just a comment. But I would just like to see that we're standardized across all departments on how the information coming forward from an RFP is presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Did those comments relate to both 6.5.1 and 6.5.3?
Yes, that's correct. In this case, they just give the detail of the winning component or proponent, and whereas in Public Works, they provide more information about all of the bids.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sure the CAO has noted those comments. I will read the motion for the consent agenda, which is resolved that General Government section of Coordinated Committee hereby receives the March 11th, 2021 consent agenda, items 6.4 through to 6.7, and that the recommendations contained therein be adopted. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Mayor Fulci and Councillor Foster. All in favor? And that motion carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is 6.8.1, the CAO's verbal update regarding COVID-19. Over to you, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So today we'll have our communications officer, Mike Jennings, speak. Our deputy fire chief is sitting in for me with the CAO's meeting and with Dr. Garner, so he won't be available this morning to provide the update from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. So it'll be our communications officer, and then I'll give the update from the command team.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Very good. So I'm just going to touch on the highlights since I last spoke to you in February. On February 22nd, the provincial government said that it would invest $4.1 million to help train 373 new PSWs to support long-term care homes. On February 24, the government announced the appointment of Frank Rochon as the first CEO of Supply Ontario. And this is the province's new centralized procurement agency. And he's going to work with the agency's board to establish the organization's mandate and outline its strategic business plan. As the agency becomes operational, it will be responsible for leveraging Ontario's buying power as the largest public sector buyer in the country. On February 26th, rather, the government activated the so-called emergency brake, placing Thunder Bay District and Simcoe Muskoka back into the gray zone to help curb the spread of COVID. Simcoe Muskoka since then returned to the red designation this past Monday. The government said March 2nd that it has provided more than $1 billion to date through the Ontario Small Business Support Grant to help eligible business owners affected by COVID-19 restrictions. This grant provides a minimum of $10,000 to a maximum of $20,000 that can be used in whatever way makes the most sense for individual businesses, including paying wages, offsetting the cost of rent, to purchasing inventory. This information and other supports for our business community can be found on our business recovery portal, and that can be found on our website at wasagabeach.com. March the 3rd, Queen's Park said it's hired more than 100 health and safety inspectors to support business inspection campaigns. These inspectors will be trained by July the 1st. To date, the province's inspectors have conducted more than 13,000 COVID-related workplace inspections across Ontario. They've issued almost 9,500 orders and 373 tickets. On March the 5th, Queen's Park said that it was transitioning Toronto, Peel, North Bay, and Parry Sound public health regions out of the shutdown that we all know and into the revised COVID-19 response framework. The stay-at-home order is also no longer in effect for those communities. In addition, 7 other public health regions were moved to new levels in the framework. And that same day, the province said that it is preparing for the rollout of phase 2 of the vaccine distribution plan next month, and the focus will be on vaccinating populations based on age as well as risk. March 10th, the government announced the new Tourism Economic Recovery Task Force, and this will be chaired by former MPP and Cabinet Minister Tim Hudak. He'll be giving advice and recommendations on how to help the province's $36 billion tourism industry recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And also March the 10th, yesterday, Queen's Park said that starting March the 12th, more than 325 pharmacies in Ontario will be offering the AstraZeneca vaccine to eligible Ontarians aged 60 to 64 by appointment only as part of the vaccine delivery pilot program that's happening in specific regions of Ontario. And that concludes my synopsis of what's happening on the provincial front.
Madam Chair, I see that our Deputy Fire Chief has broken away from the meeting with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So I'd like to ask Craig to provide the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit update.
Great. Good morning, members of council. I would like to start by offering the update from the health unit, followed by an update on our local vaccine clinic and the operations that are ongoing there. Globally, there have been more than 118 million cases of COVID-19, including 65.7 million recoveries and 2.61 million deaths. Nationally, we've seen 896,000 cases with 843,000 recoveries, and Canada has now experienced 22,330 COVID-related deaths. Provincially, we've seen 312,000 cases with 294,000 recoveries and 7,099 deaths. The current number of Ontario citizens hospitalized due to COVID-19 is 678. There are 281 individuals admitted to ICUs across the province, and that includes 178 that are on ventilators. The provincial testing positivity rate is currently 2.5%, and to date, Ontario has conducted over 11.4 million COVID-19 tests. Within the Simcoe Muskoka region, there have been 6,801 reported cases, including 190 deaths. To date, there have been 710 local cases that have either tested positive or screened positive for a COVID-19 variant of concern. And there are now 3 variants of concern that have been identified within Simcoe Muskoka. These are the UK, the Brazilian, and the South African variants. There are currently 20 individuals hospitalized in Simcoe County. The 7-day rolling average of COVID-19 in Simcoe Muskoka is 36.6 cases per day. Our percent positivity now sits at 1.5%, and there are 18 active outbreaks within our region, including 5 institutions, 2 community settings, 5 education settings, and 6 workplaces. There have been over 51,600 doses of vaccine administered throughout Simcoe and Muskoka, and these have been mainly given to hospital workers as well as persons over the age of 85. 15,700 of these individuals have now received both of their first and second doses, and in addition, 94% of long-term care residents as well as 94% of retirement home residents have received their first dose of vaccine, and this is great. Within Wasaga Beach, as of yesterday, we've had a total of 142 cases, including 131 recoveries, 3 deaths, and there are 8 active cases in our community. The most recent case was listed on March the 9th, and our town does not have any active outbreaks at this time. So the following is a update on our local vaccine clinic and how it works, as there has been a number of questions from our community as well as staff. So led by the Simcoe Muskoka Health Team, the South Georgian Bay Family Health Team has successfully launched the first drive-through vaccine clinics in both Wasaga Beach and in Collingwood. The operating hours of these clinics will be increasing over time as the availability of the vaccine improves. The health team's goal is to administer 4 to 5 vaccines every 5 minutes on a continuous basis during normal operating hours using a drive-through format. And thus far, the feedback from those in attendance has been excellent. For the first 2 weeks of operations, the clinics were operating 3 days a week. And during the next few weeks, the clinics will be operating a minimum of 5 to 6 days per week, and will be alternating between the Wasaga Beach site and the Collingwood site. So on days when Wasaga Beach has a vaccine clinic operating, Collingwood will have a testing clinic operating. On days when Collingwood is testing, Wasaga Beach will be using the vaccine clinics. And in that fashion, we expect to see that our site, which is at the Wasaga Beach Recplex, will be in use the vast majority of days for the foreseeable future. So I have heard from a number of residents who are concerned that they have been unable to book their vaccine appointments at this point. I am empathetic for these individuals. However, I'm encouraging everybody in our community to be patient with the vaccine rollout. All appointments are currently booked until March the 16th. However, the province will be releasing a new booking system and a call center to those to support the COVID-19 vaccine booking appointments. And we expect to see that the province is going to release the details of this system on March the 15th. This should dramatically streamline everyone's ability to book. Additionally, the province has now announced that we are able to delay the administration of the second vaccine for up to 16 weeks. So those that currently have second dosages booked are likely to receive a cancellation from the health unit, and their appointments are going to be rebooked to a further date. And what this does is helps us to extend the limited supply of vaccine that we have to more residents, and that is key. And in fact, due to this and a number of other factors, the province has now made an announcement to indicate that they expect that all eligible adults will have access to their first dose of vaccine by the end of June. So with that in place, we are hoping for this summer and this fall to look much different than it did last year. And the final note I wanted to make is that letting our community know that both the staff and our town council, we are continuing to advocate for our residents to bring them an increased access to the fullest extent possible of the vaccine supply as soon as possible. So it is a lot of work being put into these vaccination clinics. I know that everybody would love to have their vaccine already, but by this point, it's just not possible. But recognize that this does take time. If everybody remains patient, we will get to everybody as soon as possible. Thank you, and that concludes my update.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And Madam Chair, I see a couple of cards there. People may have questions.
Thank you. I think I saw Councillor Wells first.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a question for Mike. You mentioned about the province and maybe Craig as well. You mentioned about the province moving vaccination sites to some pharmacies. Are we aware of whether any of the pharmacies within Wasaga Beach will be vaccine sites?
I am not aware of any that are participating yet. The deputy chief may have additional information to add to that.
Thank you, Mike. My understanding is Mike is correct, is that in this initial rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine, pharmacies will not be participating. However, that is a future enhancement that is going to be made. There will be local physicians in town that have access to the AstraZeneca in this initial trial phase that will be contacting some of their eligible patients and delivering that vaccine directly at their home physician's office.
Thank you. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my one question is to Craig, just related to statistics. You said 94% of long-term care and retirement home residents have been vaccinated to date. The other 6%, is that a choice they made? So in other words, that 6% are choosing not to have it, or they just haven't got around to it yet? That's part.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I'm not 100% sure. However, I would hazard to guess that is one of the answers. The other answer may be that some of these individuals are not eligible to receive the vaccine based on other medical conditions or allergies.
Thank you. If I may, the part two of that is related to an email I received from the Georgian Bay Health Team about asking me if I could qualify for the AstraZeneca virus or vaccine for people ages 60 to 64. That's going around. And it said, you filled it out yesterday. My understanding, it's a first come, first serve based on you meeting the certain criteria. There's a whole questionnaire you have to complete, but it did say that literally the reply would be today and availability might be tomorrow. So from the point of view of someone who may qualify for this for a number of reasons, I just want to say that, sitting in my chair, it was really exciting to see that this may be around sooner than later. And I do think that it bodes well for our community, certainly heading into the summer, if we can get everybody, because I know my attitude changed last night when I thought there's a chance this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow might be right around the corner. So it's just a comment. I don't think it requires a reply.
Thanks.
I can just add to that just a little bit because it may be helpful for our community to understand is Simcoe Muskoka is part of one of 6 health units that were included in an initial trial of rolling out the AstraZeneca vaccine. The emails that were sent out, that is for the initial batch of vaccine that is coming out. However, there is more coming. I've been assured of that by both Dr. Gardner as well as the Georgian Bay Family Health Team. So for residents who may be filling out these surveys and not be included in this first wave, there is more coming in short order, and it shouldn't be too long.
It actually does say that in the cover email.
Back to you, George.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll continue with the update, and I just wanted to mention that the immunization clinic schedule has been emailed to all members of council for your information, and I've asked the deputy chief to keep you updated on the schedule as it changes quickly as more vaccines become available. The town's 3 public office locations reopened this past Monday under the red level public health framework, and we've been seeing a steady stream of public walk-ins. At its last meeting, the command team reviewed the municipal law enforcement's role in assisting the OPP in enforcing Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act emergency orders. Council may recall that council reviewed the municipal enforcement service levels at its February meeting. It was determined that the town would continue to support the enforcement of provincial orders with respect to indoor and outdoor gathering limits, closure of outdoor recreational amenities, mandatory face coverings indoors, physical distance measures of 2 meters indoors. Complaints from the public regarding the enforcement of provincial orders pertaining to these matters will be directed to Municipal Law Enforcement and Licensing Department during office hours, and the department will follow through as a high priority service level. After regular business hours, the OPP will be responding to complaints. This afternoon, the Business Recovery Task Force is meeting with a full agenda, and there may be items coming forward for council's consideration later this month. Next week, the command team will begin reviewing plans for the beach area, including parking and use of the beach, as well as special events planned for the next 3 months. Finally, members of council, I would be remiss on this 1-year anniversary of the declaration of a pandemic by the World Health Organization if I didn't formally express my condolences to all the families that have lost a loved one due to the virus. The town is participating in the National Day of Observance and is flying its flags at half-mast today. I also want to take a moment to recognize the hard work of our staff over the past year in keeping the business of the town moving forward. I'm proud of their ability to adjust and adapt to the many changes that have been implemented and greatly appreciate their positive attitude. We said from the beginning that we are in this together, and there is one positive. If there's one positive that has come out of COVID-19, I believe we are stronger as a team. That concludes my comments. Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions that members of council may have.
Thank you, George. I'm sure all of council echoes your sentiments. I think we have come through this as well as can be expected, and there certainly is a great sense of teamwork among those at Town Hall. Any questions? Seeing none, I will read the motion that council received the March 11th, 2021 verbal COVID-19 update from the CAO for information. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Foster and Councillor Kinney. All in favor? And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. So the next section of our meeting, we will be moving into closed session. So I will need a mover and a seconder for the motion that reads, resolved that pursuant to section 239(2) A, B, E, and I of the Municipal Act 2001 is amended. The next portion of the March 11th, 2021 Coordinated Committee meeting will move into closed session to discuss the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal matters or local board employees, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Kinney, seconded by Mayor Byfolchi. All in favor? Thank you. And I will pass it over to the clerk to confirm that we are in closed session before I proceed.
Okay, Deputy Ray, we're back on now, live.
Okay, thank you. Having returned from closed session, we have the following motions to approve. Item 8.1, Director of Planning and Economic Development Economic Initiatives Report dated March the 11th. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee confirm the direction provided to the Director of Planning and Economic Initiatives and planning staff in closed session pertaining to an appeal to the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, also known as LPAT. If I could get a mover and a seconder. Councillor Kinney and Councillor Foster. All in favor? And that motion carries unanimously. Item 8.2, the Deputy Treasurer's Report dated March 11th, 2021, Refinancial Disclosure Report. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee received the update report provided by the Deputy Treasurer in closed session pertaining to financial disclosure for information. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Mayor by Fulci and Councillor Wells. All in favor? And that one carries unanimously. Item 8.3, CAO and Legal Counsel's Report dated March 11, 2021, Release Matter. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee confirm the direction provided to the CAO and Legal Counsel in closed session pertaining to a lease matter. I have a mover, please. Councillor Watson, seconder, Councillor Kinney. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Item 8.4, the CAO's report dated March the 11th, 2021, release matter. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee confirm the direction provided to the CAO in closed session pertaining to a lease matter. I have a mover, please. Councillor Foster, seconder, Councillor Kinney, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Item 8.5, external board meeting minutes. Resolved that the General Government Services section of Coordinated Committee received the external board meeting minutes provided in closed session for information. If I could get a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Kinney, Mayor by Fulci, and all in favor. And again, that carries unanimously. And with that, I believe Councillor Watson had asked a question that you'd maybe like to re-ask your question. The CAO could respond at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, if we are going to be moving back to in-person meetings anytime soon at all, or continuing with Zoom? Thank you.
Thank you for the question through you, Madam Chair. To the councillor, certainly under the red, we have limitations with respect to how many people can be in the council chamber. So we're limited in that regard, but one of the items that we will be discussing at our next command team agenda is taking the optimistic approach and laying out a game plan for when we go into orange, into yellow, and then eventually into green. And so when we have the opportunity to expand the numbers that go and are able to attend in the council chamber, we will look to resume in-person meetings. So certainly I'll put that on the agenda, your question on the agenda, Councillor, and certainly we'll focus on that as well, but other things we'll be covering leading into the orange, yellow, and green. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George.